So good afternoon. This is the third session, and we deal with the integrated use of fiscal and survey data. We have three presentations, and the first one is from Statistics Portugal. From the colleague here is Paulo Saraiva, and he's the director of data collection. By the way, the data collection and management, and you were telling me. And the presentation is about fiscal data and surveys, the case of business statistics in Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all for this interest in this presentation. I will talk about administrative data, the use of integrating and enrichment of data, especially the fiscal data at Statistics Portugal. And our overview is more related with our recent movement, strategical movement from data collection to more focus on management and data management. And I will explain this during my presentation. So we are trying to use and administrative data in order to transform business statistics. So when we talk about transformation, this transformation is integrating and using innovation in order to boost efficiency and trust, and of course, relevance. We have some real impact examples that we are using at this moment, like statistical business information and e-invoice. These two examples, real examples, and how we build skills and collaboration for the future. Our motivation is that when we have evolving needs from the business and other parts of the society, we need to have more integrated business statistics. So this is one point. When was talked about this morning about not silo oriented but more business oriented, it's something that I particularly like it very much. So we are shifting from surveys to use of more administrative and non-statistical data. So the goal, of course, is to be more agile, to be more efficient, to improve quality and efficiency. This is a strategic transformation. We are developing and using a unified framework through what we call a national data infrastructure, which I will explain later after. And the integration of survey, of course, census and administrative data. All of these are centralized in just one, and this management is centralized in just one department at Statistics Portugal. I repeat, surveys, the census and administrative data are centralized in our country. So this centralized governance is not means centralized resources. That's centralized control and coordination and collaborations internally and of course externally, because we access data from data providers, from data sources, and of course we are trying to improve that enlargement to other institutions. So the national data infrastructure, in fact, is a series of processes. So it's a way of doing the mixed source statistics in Portugal. It was started in 2018. It's in fact ETL processes for multi-sources integration. So the key word is multi-source, and of course integration and enrichment. It's a holistic process overview. So we have a secure inflow, ETL processes, validation, integration, enrichment, and of course access, internal access and external access to microdata. So this is a real strong role. So the roles of internally, the methodology and IT are at the beginning of this chain, this production chain, and the data collection and management controls the other parts of the flow. So the output, we can say that we provide single databases for multiple purposes and multiple users, of course. This is a way I will not explain this in a very detailed, but we started with external providers, data provider, and we, after receiving in a secure transmission, we act with extra transformer load. We can verify, we can integrate an imputation and make the imputation. And of course, integrating enrichment, we provide the data internally for other departments, subject matter units, and of course, for the external users like researchers and other public institutions using the secure and safe centers. So the keywords are agile, integration, enrichment, and multi-purpose. The first use case that I will present is not from today, but it's interesting to mention because the simplified business information, it's a solution that was developed by the Portuguese government in 2006. It follows the only one's principle. So 4 institutions, Statistics Portugal, Bank of Portugal, and Tax Authority and Ministry of Justice receive the data from all of the business. All of the business are mandatory to provide this data once a year. And all of these 4 types of data are designed by each of the 4 institutions, and when received, they are divided and sent to each of the interested parts. So today, all of the companies, let's say 450,000 companies, we have 4 obligations and just 1 electronic submission. So we have improved the coverage, we have fully dematerialized process. Of course, we can reuse across surveys, business registers, and for example, for academia. The impact is that, as you can imagine, we improve the coverage, we improve the quality, the timeliness, and the reducing the burden. The second case is invoice. Electronic invoice was introduced in Portugal in 2013 to combat VAT fraud. It's mandatory for all companies. All companies has to provide this monthly data. And everything related with business to consumer and business to business, or business to business, business to consumer. So it's around, let's say, 100 million records that we received from tax authority. So this data, this particular data is provided to us once or twice a week. I will explain this later. This centralized processing, so we implement that national data infrastructure schema to this invoice as a centralized process proof of concept of the national data infrastructure. It was the first large-scale administrative source fully integrated through the standardized and central processes. So now it supports short-term economic indicators, analytic studies, and consumption patterns. So this is, yes, we receive 100 million records per month. It's only 6 variables. We prepare in 2 days, working days, we provide a multi-purpose database with 22 variables, including from other sources, internally and external. Then this type of data can be provided to other department subject matter departments, and also provided to Safe Center to be accessed by external people. So the data treatment is a very important point to be stressed here. So as a proof of concept, it's now being applied to all data sources, external data sources. What we provide here, we provide methodological documentation. All of this documented. We provide internally flash reports and dashboards in order to provide to our internal users the level of quality that the data is used. We are trying to establish internal and external service level agreements in order to manage the expectations. And we provide reports and to researchers in order to characterize the data that we provided. What we plan to do is to prepare feedback reports to our data providers. We have this invoice database available in Safe Center since December 2023. We have some strengths and weaknesses, of course, for this approach. Of course, we have buyer and seller information, richer analysis, even for consumer, because it's not mandatory to consumer indicate the VAT number, but 25% of the transactions with business consumers are identified with their data identification. So it's interesting to have 25% and not mandatory information. Of course, one strength part is in integration with the structural data, but that's a huge but. We have limitations because sometimes we have late submissions by enterprise or even by tax authority. So we have to deal with that. We have to create plan B, plan C, plan D, and other plans other than providing no data. This is no plan. Of course, we have sometimes problems with the IT maintenance from our side and for the other part sides. We provide these internal dashboards. As I said, we have two working days to provide the internal data after receiving the data, because the timing, the clock is clicking. Other cases, the RS, personal income tax. We receive this information yearly from the tax authority, and the point is they don't send the declaration ID of the fiscal households. So we have to build the relationship between the individuals and the household itself. So it's a very interesting point to deal, but it's not exactly meant for this audience. But it can be replicated for other, for example, establishments or local units. This is one of the direct use of the personal income tax, especially with Silk, where we are moving and avoiding the income data collection variable from the families to use this variable directly from the tax. We have the Stats Lab, which is an innovation laboratory to prepare new statistical products and before the final version. We have some, if you go to my presentation, you can see some links and some results, but I would like to point this result. That's the birth of first child, which is interesting to see the level of expenditure of a family before and after the birth of the first child. It's completely produced with the income tax data. So as a conclusion, we have the data integration is considered the cornerstone of the modern statistics, official statistics. But I can mention other cornerstones, but I can stay with that for this moment. And the next focus is more related with automation and AI-based validation. Validation is a huge field to improve our developments in the future. And of course, broadening the partnerships with other institutions. But we have some problems related with the access of microdata, because we can receive data, but we cannot provide microdata to others. So this is a tricky situation, but the technical issue is solved. I think it's that.
Thank you, Paolo, for this experience. As far as I know, it's the most advanced experience in the National Statistic Institute. Now we have 8 minutes for the discussion, but of course, at the end of the session, we have also other 5 minutes for more general comments.
Thank you, Paolo, for a very, very nice presentation, and it looks like utopia to us, so it's really well done. I have two questions. So the first one, you talked about having various sources to produce one statistic, if I understood correctly. So do you also account for the different kind of error structure that you have within each data source? I mean, a survey data will have a different error variance, for instance, than a register, for instance.
Yes, we have to deal with that with linkage. And of course, this is one of the major first problems, but after solving this, everything is smooth. But the concept is to have this enrichment. That I mentioned that we received 6 variables from e-invoice and provided 22. It reflects everything. So everything is related with survey data and other administrative data that we provided with. How do we design this integrated? We request from our internal user, the external users. So sometimes we expand this for 25, 26, more. It depends on the quality, level of quality.
Okay, thank you. Can I have one follow-up question? So it's quite unrelated to the first question, perhaps a bit controversial, so don't shoot the messenger. But aren't we shifting the response burden from a few sampled units to all businesses to the tax office?
Yes, the burden issue again. Yes, of course. When we talk about samples and improving to the population, it's a huge. But the problem is not that. They provided to 4, for example, in the simplified business information, they provide to 4 institutions at once. And it is clear for us and for them that they prefer to do that than to split their mandatory information needs to other. So of course, but if perceived is completely perceived the burden is completely different. So I truly recommend this approach.
Thank you.
More question from the floor?
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. Just a curiosity. So when you focus on these invoice data, do you also have information on foreign clients, or is this focused on domestic transaction between clients and suppliers?
This is information provided by businesses to tax authority monthly. They provided all of the transactions, business to business, business to consumer. Business to business, all of the buyer and seller are identified. business to consumer, 25% of the consumers are identified as consumers. Did I answer your question?
So with the business to business transaction, if your client is foreign, can you also track this kind of information and potentially recreate the global value chain, right, by using also the international transactions?
Yes, it's possible, but when we talk about this, is when you go deepen, not only the transaction but the item transaction. It has this potential because the system is designed not only for the transaction or the heading, but also for the items. But it's a huge amount of data and a huge amount of processing time. But we have this in mind.
Thank you, Paolo, for your impressive presentation. And your presentation points out the importance of coordination and collaboration between institutions. What were the main challenges in establishing these partnerships? And how did you ensure data quality and trust across the involved organizations?
Thank you, Pasquale. I think the most important thing is to harmonize and to understand or to transform some metadata from one side to other side. It's of course one point, but I think the main problem is about the constant flow. Maintain the flow is the more critical issue, and sometimes we have to deal with that. We have to cope with no having flow. We cannot have this complaint all the time. We have to act. This is the main message that I would like to. That's why I said that we have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and other plans. Not having data is no plan.
Can I ask you, just to be very short, so in this plan B, you impute, for example, for the invoice, if the data do not arrive in time, you do have some methodology to input to give to the users the data anyway. I mean,
yeah, for sure. Even for the missing data or for the outliers, for example, we use methodologies, especially nowcasting methodologies, but it's developed by us with the help of our methodologies, of course. But when we input, we say it so. We mention, we sign off that was inputted, and our dashboard and our press internal is put indicated that this value was inputted using this model. Please use it or not. It's up to you.
Thank you. We have time for another question or comment or from here, if you have.
Yeah, I was wondering if you collect data for many purposes, for different institutes actually using them. Sometimes you see like suspicious values in data, and if you like edit or correct them, or how do you communicate with the other institutions about corrections or?
Thank you. For the real flow, we don't go back to the other institutions, but after some periods, we show some key indicators, performance indicators, in order to show them the quality of their data. This is not very appreciated by them, for sure, but it's in order to show that we are keeping an eye of the data. So it's a way of having more relevance in the relationship. It's not only a matter of trust, it's a matter of the relevance of the relationship. Of course, we deal with a lot of sources, and sometimes we have 2 or 3 sources for the same entity, and they are completely different managed. We have to deal with that. Sometimes they ask us to talk with the colleagues of the same institutions to have some harmonized solution internally for them. So this is very important to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo. So let's go on. We will have time to discuss more. Please, we have the other presentation, and is from Guus van den Burg from Statistics Netherlands. He's a senior statistician in economic and business department. Yes. And the presentation is using tax data for structural business statistics in Netherlands, SBS. Thank you, Guus. You have the floor. Anyway, we will have time to discuss even, I mean, informally or formally in the small group discussion on. I mean, this is the point why we are here to compare experience, learn each other, and.
Yeah, thanks that I'm also allowed to tell something about what we are doing. And during the day, everything was still more focused on the data collection. And we all say, oh, we should make more use of administrative data. So in this presentation, I will not so much focus on the data collection, but on how to make more use of the administrative data after it is collected. And it's mainly focused on the tax data and how to use it for structural business statistics. And of course, focused on the case of the Netherlands, because that's where I'm working. How to go to the next slide. Yep. So structural business statistics is quite a broad range. And I indicated with the colors how it is arranged in the Netherlands. But actually, it's 3 main type of variables: the number of active enterprises, which is in a different, which is in a separate branch. Then there are output-related variables like net turnover, value added, gross operating surplus, and input-related variables. Lots of variables with regard to labor, but also with regards to goods and services. And they have variables for the capital input, the gross investments. And I'll look at the 3 different processes, so the 3 different colors in the next slides. So with regard to the business units being active, it's already long time based on administrative data. So we say that the units if active is if wages are paid in the payroll tax return. So that's all administrative data. Or if there's turnover in the value-added tax data. So that's all administrative. And the last source is if there's turnover in corporate or income tax. And that last one is a bit more difficult because the first two ones you have like on a monthly basis. So you get these data quite soon. And corporate and income tax is much later, like, 1.5 years late after the reporting period. It's sort of more available. And another problem is that you don't need to pay the value added tax if you have very small yearly turnover. So if the yearly turnover is under 20,000 euros, you don't have to pay VAT. So we don't see if a company is slightly active. And another problem can be that a company is not active for some period. So if we don't see that there are wages paid or turnover for 1 month, we don't know if it's really, if it has really stopped or it's just not active for a few months and then starting again. Like if you have a restaurant at the beach, probably in the winter you're closed and then there's nothing happening, but you're still active. Yeah, I think 1 year ago there was an SBS workshop fully focused on activity. So I'll leave it to this, but this is all on administrative data. So for our response burden, that's good. Then the capital input. That process is changing. So at the moment, it's a questionnaire. There's no use of text data. But in the near future, they want to use a lot of the corporate and income tax data for the smaller units. So units that have maximum 19 persons employed. And the units have to be, we have to be able to connect our business units to the fiscal units. So that's only possible if it's like one or a number of fiscal units that go to one business unit. And if it's like one or a number of business units going to multiple business units, then we don't know what numbers to connect to what business unit. And then of course it's also important to have coverage of those fiscal units in the and to have response of these fiscal units. And they didn't trust non-negative values. So if they say, oh, the investment was negative, then we say, oh, that's very suspicious. Let's not use these data. Yeah, so they're in the process of changing this. Yeah, they're currently changing this process. And as we see all the time in this meeting, it's important to reduce the response burden. I'm not allowed to say back here, but he's not here, I think. So, but it's also for better quality. And that's what they checked a lot in the, oh, he is here, but okay. Sorry, here, I didn't see. So they noticed that there's much better reporting for text data than there is for our statistical data. Companies think that their text data is more important to fill in well, so they hire an accountant to do so. Whereas for our questionnaires, they say, oh, it's just for the statistical office, we can fill in ourselves. And if we draw a sample, then we have like response for 1,000 small units. And if we have the text data, we have all the units. So we have much more response. And then you can have discussion on in text data, you don't have exactly the right variables, or there can be differences within the same variable. Like in the text data, they say we invested 100, and in the questionnaire they said, oh, we invested 1,000. So they confronted a lot of units with these differences. They confronted, and they tried to do so by not giving any burden, so just looking up the accounting sheets on the internet or on the Chamber of Commerce. And some companies, they did phone, like, oh, there are these differences, what is right? And then it was often proven that the text data was better than the statistical data. And what they also noticed in the income tax and corporate tax data, you have for the investments, you need the balance sheet values. So it's a value for the starting of the period and for the ending of the period. But it's pointed out that the value at the starting period was often way less quality, or often empty, or so they said, oh, we need data for 2 consecutive years, so we can use the end data of the balance sheet value from the previous year and get the capital investments by subtracting the end value of this year from the end value of last year. So there are some drawbacks of in the text data. It's fiscal values instead of economic values. And there are a lot of variables missing. You can only see the net investment instead of both the investments and the disinvestments. There can be fiscal reasons for changing a value, which is then also only available for the sum of intangible and tangible assets, whereas we want it to be split. And we want more detail in the type of assets. And we also want to distinguish between self-made or second-hand, or and with the leasing constructions. And that's all not in the text data, but it's better to have a large number of high-quality data than to have all these details, especially for the smaller companies. So they're just checking, for the capital investments, they're checking how to automatically edit these data, what primary observations are needed for missing details, and what primary observations are needed for missing business units, like the units that are not one to and connected to the fiscal units. And later on, they want to check how to handle businesses with 0 persons employed, because they are not in the research right now, and how to handle startups, since then you don't have any information from the previous year. Although I think then there would be no balance value also from the previous year, but. And then the last part, the most variables, turnover and costs. Yeah, in the current situation, we do a lot of with data with turnover from the value-added tax, and we have to be a bit quick, maybe. So for the smallest units, we just use these levels from the value-added tax, and then add a structure from slightly bigger units. For medium-sized units with a stable structure, we say, oh, we do a questionnaire like once every 3 or 4 years. And then use developments from turnover, and then that's fine. For medium-sized units, it's a sample every year, and we can weigh to the values of turnover. And for the large integral units, or units that are part of a large enterprise, we can say oh, we have to have a sample every year. They have to be in a sample every year. And we can still scale them sometimes to the level of turnover from the short-term statistics or from the value-added tax. And this is also a process we want to change. We want to make more use of the corporate and income tax. And the first step is to start with determining one one right value for a variable. So like net turnover, we have in 3 sources. We have in the structural business statistics for the yearly turnover, and then in short-term statistics for 12 monthly turnovers or for quarterly turnovers. And the value of the short-term statistics can be derived from the value-added tax. So the first step is to determine which turnover is right. Same holds for wages, where you have the income tax as an extra source. And then the discussion is if we should compile to a calendar year, because that's where you know the right value for the year. Where we want to, the output should be on calendar year, preferably. Now, if we say the level of turnover in 2023 was, people expect that we talk about the calendar year and not about a fiscal year that can change from business to business. And the other discussion is if we should make it like a single value for all sources or like a range. And the advantage of a range is that you don't have to change all the sources. Yep. So in the near future, we should check how to automatically edit the structural business statistics variables, because we have some variables that are in the range of, they are in multiple sources, and then you have this specific value, but in the structural business statistics, we have much more variables. So we have to automatically edit them as well. And we have to check on how well this corporate and income tax data match and how well it's usable. But the goal is to use it a lot for where it's possible to reduce the response burden. And the difficulty is that it's late available. So I said like after 1.5 years, and then that's like 4 months after that we have to provide the data to national accounts. So that's difficult. And it might be selective that smaller enterprises respond earlier. So we miss the larger ones. So maybe a solution can be to use data from the previous year. And the other discussion is what to do if they send in multiple times. Should we use the first response, or can we alter it later on? Yeah, partnerships are also a problem, because then for the time I'll skip the partnerships. So that's what I wanted to tell.
Thank you, Gus. You showed us, the complexity. When you have a very complex SBS statistics are very complex, many variable, and so substituting is impossible. And we have to integrate, and the complexity grow. The complexity. Please, we have some minutes for questions from the floor first.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentations. I'm Simone, I'm from Istot, and I'm the responsible of the SBS surveys. So it's very interesting for me, this presentation, and also the presentation of the colleague from Statistics Portugal. My question is about the use of turnover. We are facing the same problems in Italy about turnover and investments. Starting from turnover of STS or other sources that you can have, that you can manage, then you start to use this value to apply some proportional decisions to create a complete set of accounts for the companies, or the substitution is only for some values that you can find in the administrative sources. Thank you.
Yeah, so turnover from VAT is quite widely available. So even in the current process, we already correct a lot of the SBS response to the level of the VAT data. But if you only have VAT data, it's still quite a good source to impute a company. But you prefer to, like, if you know the development of the turnover from VAT from one year to another, and you have a response from the previous year, you can make quite a good imputation for that business unit. And once you start to know less, if you don't have information from the previous year, yeah, then you have to make like imputation for a stratum average, but you can still use the level of VAT that you know, like, oh, I have to make an imputation that goes to 1 million euros turnover, because I know from VAT that it's 1 million euros turnover. So that's something that we currently do already and that we will do in the future. So there are a lot of sources to get the other variables from, preferably from the same unit, but otherwise from a stratum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Paolo, Salvatore, also you, do you have any questions? No.
Thank you. Thank you, Gus. In your presentation, you mentioned ongoing research on automatic editing of tax data. Can you explain something more about the approach you are using to this procedure?
Yeah, so if you have multiple sources for turnover, yeah, the main source for the automatic editing is like corrections in the past. So if we saw that SBS turnover was often corrected, and then if you make this correction, what other variables are then also corrected? So that's the main source to to say like, oh, the harmonious turnover level is 2 times higher than. So for example, in trade, it's often like, oh, then the purchase value wasn't right. But if you can see like, oh, the level of turnover is 2 times higher, but the level of the number of persons employed is also 2 times higher, then it's probably a scaling issue that you have to multiply the whole, that you have to multiply all the variables with a factor 2. So, yeah, learning from the past and learning from experience, yeah, combination of that.
Thank you, Gus. We have not so much time, so if there is no quick questions, we move to the third presentation. Okay, and then we have 5 minutes at the end of the session to wrap all or to discuss. So the presentation is from Salvatore Filiberti. He's a senior statistician from the Business Economic Department. The title is Integrating Electronic Invoices Data in the Monthly Business Statistics on Services Turnover, from the experimental phase to the start of full production. Thank you, Salvatore. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Salvatore Filiberti and work at the Directorate of Economics for Economic Statistics, and in particular at the Short-Term Business Statistics Division. First of all, I would like to thank the contributors of this paper, of this presentation, that are Giancarlo Bruno and Francesca Tuzzi. But I also would like to thank all the colleagues that are involved in the project of use fiscal data for the short-term business statistics, in particular the Directorate of Data Collection Directorate and IT Directorate that are providing help in carry out this important and strategic project for ESTAT. Okay. I'll shortly talk about the integration of data sources that are used for this aim, the simulation analysis and results, and then I will provide you with some remarks and the future work that we are going to develop. Okay. The objective of the analysis is to assess the feasibility of using administrative data, which are constituted by electronic invoicing and electronic receipts data coming from the revenue agency, in order to integrate or replace data acquired through the turnover in services survey in the production of official statistics. The methodology is based on approach based on a stratum level defined by the combination of NACE Rev2 economic activity sector size class, that in this case is a number of persons employed or turnover of enterprise. And the purpose is to identify strata with respect to which we are allowed to replace survey data. Main advantages, as also my colleagues of the session told before, are reducing statistical burden on businesses, improving quality of estimates, and increasing the efficiency of production processes. I'll give you some information about the approach and integration characteristics. The timeline is from of the data that we get. Is from January 2024 to July 2025 on a monthly basis, and the companies included in the survey of turnover of services and in the administrative archive. The ID key is the tax code, and of course, we used the information coming from the business register in order to get the information of belonging to each enterprise in terms of economic activity sector and also other structural information. And we could make the match with the units of the FAST sample for the years that 2024 and 25. The analysis is made of two steps. The first step is at sample level, and the second step at population level. This is the scheme of what I just told. We have the source, the data source from the revenue agency, the electronic invoice, and the electronic receipts. In particular, this source, the electronic receipts, is more recent as a source. We have this data from January 2025. Of course, we used the information, as I told before, the business register and the information from the survey class. And here there are in the schematic, in the scheme, the two steps of the analysis. The simulation is based on almost 500,000 firm period records from the FAS FAS is the turnover on the survey of turnover of services. So we have about 26,000 units per month, and the respondent units are about 20,000 per month. So we have 386,000 units. The total turnover from the two sources was aggregated according to the stratum classification criterion, and we carried out criteria for assessing the degree of proximity between the two sources, mainly in the three, according to three steps: graphical analysis, diagnostics, and accuracy indicators. We also compared turnover from all companies within the scope of the FAS survey, which is 1.2 million firms, according to the Business Register 2023. And the turnover totals were aggregated at firm period association with the certification criteria adopted in the FAS survey. Some remarks that are necessary before I show you the results of the tables and the graphs of the analysis. We worked on 227 strata of the survey. That in the tables the tables that I will show you are aggregated in according to size classes. And we made some diagnostics and graphical analysis in two different timelines. The first one we called it type A, which is from January 24 to July 25, is concerns the fiscal source that includes only the electronic invoices. The second data set, type B, includes the information from the revenue agency in terms of electronic invoice, but also in terms of electronic receipts, but over the period of 7 months to the first 7 months of the year 2025. There has been a preliminary step in order to detect and remove anomalous values. So some the features of the administrative data are shown hereafter, which are the inclusion of the source of the electronic receipts, the transition from sample to entire population, and the role of turnover to foreign buyer component. This is the first table of the in which we can see some first results. We can have the first important thing is that is very high correlation between turnover totals of the two data sources in the two period that are considered. High percentage of strata pass the test of equality between means, and the AR component type B contributes to improve data quality, especially in some sectors and in some size classes. And the proportionality between turnover totals test is accepted in a good percentage of cases, with a substantial increase in some particular strata, due, as I told before, to the inclusion of the ER component type B. In this table, we have some accuracy indicators on month variations. Also, here we have it's clear that are very quite good correlations between the two variations. Remain good in all over the size classes. We can see that there is in general there is not a systematic behavior it's not evident across all the strata. In other things is that there is a slight overestimation of the turnover that we collect with the FAS survey. But the contribution of the electronic receipts reduced the gap between month on month, particularly in the classes 2 and 3. The classes are from 1 to 8, and the first classes are the class with the size is smaller, and the 7, 8 are the classes where the size is higher. Okay. In the red rectangle, we can see that there are more heterogeneous results in the class 1, which is the smallest enterprises, because of the nature of the sectors and the inaccuracies in some survey data. Okay. In these, okay, then we went more in depth, and I will show you some particular economic activity sector. For example, this is the accommodation, the NACE 55, and we can see that without the electronic receipt information, but only with the electronic invoice data, we have this kind of situation for the first months of the year 2025. And these are the correlation on totals. When we add the electronic receipts and we use both sources from the revenue agency, the situation is much better in the month-on-month variation, and of course also in the correlation totals, because the effect of the adding the electronic receipts is positive, very good. Another sector is the activities employment placement agency. Also here we have a strong correlation between the data coming from the survey and from the administrative sources. Another case is the activity of the sale, maintenance, and repair of motorcycles and related parts and accessories, the 45. And also here, of course, we see the strong correlation between the two variables. And this is the case. The last, shortly, I would like to show you a last case in which we have information. We're comparing the information from the electronic invoices issued to domestic market and the domestic and foreign market. Due to some issue with the foreign currency, we get some outlier here. And then if we clean the DB and keep away this kind of outlier, we have a much better situation. The anomaly, yes, 1 minute. The anomaly is the foreign center. I shortly finish the presentation. Concluding, very interesting results we had from these experiments that show, as you saw, the great potential for these for the future activities of use these sources. The indicators provide extremely positive results. Of course, the work is still in progress, but very important is the reduction of statistical burden that will be carried out in the next years. Also, we have to consider the impact of that use of massive use of administrative data will have on the operation of because it is needed to monitor the data that we get, the knowledge of their characteristics, metadata, in order to use they properly, in order to satisfy statistical purposes. It's very important is necessary, and it's important the cooperation with the revenue agency with which we have contacts. Is crucial for the process efficiency and accurate data interpretation. Concluding, the strategic guidelines for 2026 is that it's going to use the fiscal data from the revenue agency starting from January 2026 for the turnover short-term statistics. And will also in the coming years we will expand. There will be an expansion of these kind of using of these administrative database. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Salvo. If there is any question? Okay.
Thank you, Salvo. Very easy question. You mentioned in the conclusions your implementation plan. When do you plan to pass from an experimental stage to real implementation of this very useful source of data?
Okay, thank you, Pasquale. The plan of the direction of our direction, if I can tell, is to start from the new year for 2026 edition of the FAST survey, starting to not to involve in the survey mainly the strata with the small dimension, because they, of course, for them the burden is very high, and so it's very important that starting from these strata, from these domains. The idea is to cut the sample size in about 20-25%. That is, as a beginning, is we think is a good result. We made this experiment. I mean, this is just part of all the simulation and experiments that we are carrying out, but we are confident that we can start with cutting a sample of about 8,000, maybe more per month. So in 1 year are 100,000 contacts that we save. We think that for enterprises is very good. And then in the future, we are going to implement this kind of approach also for the turnover in industry sector. And also this kind of data will probably be used for the short-term statistics on the retail sector. That is the 47 and S47. And the scenario is in progress. We can in the future we will also use this kind of data for other economic sectors like constructions and so on. And of course, this information will be useful for anything structural business statistics.
Okay, Salvo. Clear. Thank you.
I have a general question. Maybe it's then to all three of you. Do you hear me well? Am I heard? Can you hear me? Right. I think all of your three works show a very big care about establishing quality of the statistics and the data that you have. However, I'm still thinking about the following. When the scientific survey methodology was established some almost 100 years ago, 1920s, 1930s, it was based, so the important concept was of random sampling, and also there was a concept of being able to express the uncertainty in the data produced. So it started with sampling error, but then started to include other components of the error. So if we if we move us in our thoughts to the current situation, is there any hope to be able to express uncertain? I mean, it's very easy. You can ask anybody on the street to tell you a number. It will be a point estimate. And we don't know how much certain or not certain that number is. It's much more difficult to produce the, call it confidence interval or uncertainty interval, because that requires much more than one single. You can ask Chat GPT to give you a number, it will give you some number, but you don't know what's behind it. So I mean, what you are doing is absolutely necessary. That's where we are going. Still, I'm asking you, have you yourself sometimes in some quiet moments thought about how to come to expressing uncertainty in the statistics based on the administrative data that you are producing or that you are making available for statistical products to produce statistics on? Are we near there somewhere?
Thank you for the questions. Everybody here can answer. It's not an easy question, not at all.
Now, I think it's getting more and more complicated to give any confidence intervals when using administrative data, because either you say like, oh, these administrative data, we have all observations and they're all fixed, and the confidence interval is not an interval, but it's just a single point. Or you have to say, no, this administrative data is also sort of a statistical product, because we don't, not everybody responds to the tax authority, and not everything is matched well. And then if you derive other variables from this turnover from the tax data, then you have some indication that the value is more right, because you know the turnover. But if you have a value like total cost, then it's linked to that turnover, but how much is it linked? And so it's getting way too complicated to give any confidence intervals. So yeah, I had some discussions with our methodological department, and they also said like, oh, you should give up trying to give any confidence intervals.
Established 100 years ago to be able to distinguish ourselves from what was it, Reader Digest or some other ways of producing statistics that were not our earlier scientific statistics. I mean, how do we keep ahead of any other data produced? I mean, what are we offering as official statistics that is better than, yeah, take any firm who can also produce point estimates of some kind? I agree with Fabio, it's not a simple question, but you can continue tomorrow on the small group discussion.
Yeah, no. So I have some idea, but it's better, we can discuss it in the discussion, not now, yes. But I don't think there are no more questions. Yes. We have only 3 minutes. Yes, 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe to follow up on Boris's question, I think this is a very important question as to the basis of our statistics. And I'm thinking about, is there a relation with the discussion on sampling and non-probability sampling? So maybe Joe, you could say something about that as an expert in non-probability sampling.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that question. I mean, no worries. No, it's the same problem though. In non-probability sampling, we don't have like a good underlying theoretical framework that allows us to calculate uncertainty estimates. And of course, the situation is true with administrative data as well. And you also have additional selection biases, not only in non-probability data, but in administrative data as well, that are hard to quantify and hard to account for in uncertainty estimates. Yeah, I think it's an open question still, how best to estimate the uncertainty there.
Okay, thank you. We can continue the discussion later on, tomorrow and after tomorrow. And so thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you also for the questions. There now we have a coffee break. Thank you. Before?
Okay, sorry. Before going to get another coffee, we would like to invite you to take a picture. You can proceed downstairs from where you enter into the building, and we can make a picture over there.
So we are going downstairs to take a picture on the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and then we come back, get a coffee.
To get a coffee.
And
Okay.
we have to start.
If you want to get a coffee,
3:50.
you have to get a picture first. Thank you.
Thank you.